So we're talking the Arab-Israeli conflict or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In the background are some images. I don't know, Layla, can you see the video that's going out live?
No, actually, no.
No problem.
But I log into the laptop, then it's just in front of me.
Yeah, well, no problem, but I've got some pictures of the wall there. That's a picture taken in Bethlehem. This is the separation wall between the West Bank and Israel proper that cuts off a lot of Palestinian people from their land and digs deep into the occupied territories and sort of snakes round what would be the border between Israel and a proposed Palestinian state. But why is it a topic you're interested in talking to me about tonight?
The conflict between Israel and Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my first question.
Okay.
Like, so what is your understanding? Like, what are they, like, Israel and Palestine? Like, how can you define that question?
This is a good question. What is Israel? What is Palestine? Palestine, I think, is historically the region between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea, up to the Golan Heights, where you border Lebanon, and down into the Sinai, when you get past Gaza. So it's a historic region. It's not a state anymore, but it's certainly a national identity. And Israel is the self-proclaimed Jewish state that came into being in 1948 with their war of independence and what the Palestinians remember as the Nakba. But look, we've got a caller on the other line, so I'm going to merge the calls and say welcome to whoever this is. Do you want to get involved in the conversation?
I do. Hi there.
Is this welcome, Return of the Mac?
I'm watching the video now, like I'm on the YouTube as well.
Okay, you want to okay, and we got Mac involved. Mac, you there?
Yeah. I would like to finish the point, and then obviously I'd like to weigh in if that's okay.
Okay, so the question was, what is Israel, what is Palestine? Palestine is a historic region and a national identity. Israel is a modern state with a Jewish identity. There's the long and short of it. Layla, what do you understand by the terms?
I'll keep my answer for next time.
Okay, no problem. Mac, do you want?
I'll be asking the questions.
Mac, have you got a different answer to the first question, which is what is Israel, what is Palestine? And Layla, I hope you can hear Mac as well.
Yeah.
My argument goes back to the conflict between. Remember, I kept saying the Beblet. Now, I've got something extra to add to my argument about not just about the Beblet changing, but you know how in the Quran there's a dispute about which kid was sacrificed and which kid, and then in the Jewish. I think if you think about it logically, when you leave, you desert your child in the middle of the Sahara. That's a form of sacrificing your child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one form. So I believe, in my opinion, that's again because they say Prophet Abraham, it was Abraham that actually built the Kaaba with this, and there's actually footsteps of Prophet Abraham there as well. So that in itself is showing it's a holy land. Why would now the history behind the Kaaba is that's the first place where Adam prostrated on this land towards God. That is the history behind why that's a holy spot as well. Now, he was obviously prostrating towards Jerusalem, Adam. But the point was that Kaaba is where basically, where now, historically, so as a Muslim, we can see Ishmael was sent there as a sacrifice. So to back up, as well as the Qibla being that direction, Muslims should obviously, if their heritage does, even the Palestinians, their heritage does go back to Ishmael, so they should realize that their land, actually ancestry land, is where Abraham had. So these are all actions. I'm basing it on Rasulullah's action was in the middle of his prayer, change the qibla. So if you don't follow his action there, then that's not, or if that action is not telling you something, or logic behind that action, then fine, I concede my point. But to back up my point, I also say that if Ishmael was deserted in the Sahara in Saudi Arabia, that's a form of sacrifice. So Muslims, when they say, because the dispute was, it was Ishmael, not Isaac, that was sacrificed, but Isaac was also sacrificed as well. He was taken to try and be beheaded. So yeah, both.
All right, Mac, I will let you back in. Let me just respond to that and say I think this is one of the problems we have when people answer a political question with a religious answer.
Religious one.
Yeah. Layla, do you want to? I know Layla probably doesn't have all night. Do you want to ask your next question, Layla? Are you satisfied with our answer of what is Israel, what is Palestine?
Yes, I am satisfied.
Okay. And if you've got anything to add or do you disagree, do please come back at us. Mac is arguing a religious argument for the state of Israel, and funnily enough, he's a Muslim and he's arguing for the state of Israel.
I'm saying it's their land. I mean,
that's fine. That's fine. On the screen, I've got Judaism rejects the Zionist state.
It's historical events. I'm talking about it.
That's all right. That's fine. Mac, we're going to move it on because tonight might be a brief show. Let's hear Layla's next question, and I'll let you respond, and I'll respond also. Layla, what's the next question?
How did the conflict begin?
How did the conflict begin?
Mac, are you going to say it began in the Bible?
Well, it was with David. Wasn't it David with the Philistines?
Okay, so you're saying it began thousands of years ago.
Yeah, the Canaanites. Or I don't know. It depends how you want to see it. But the conflict. I mean, which are you talking about? The modern day conflict? Because it started from 19. It was a 6-day war. I mean, which conflict are you talking about exactly? You need to specify.
At the beginning, like how did it all begin? Like, because this conflict has been going on for a long time now, you know.
Okay.
And
so has it? I think we get told it's been going for thousands of years when really it has been going since the Nakba, and prior to that, since when the Balfour Declaration promised the land of one people on behalf of another people to belong to a third people. I think this is a modern 20th century problem. It doesn't go back thousands of years. Muslims, Christians and Jews have lived in that land peacefully together before, and I look forward to the day that they will again, and the only way that that can happen is with a just peace where everybody is treated equally and someone is not under the foot of the other.
Yeah, I agree to that. I concur.
Okay. Layla, when do you think the conflict started?
But I think the conflict started like when more Jews have moved into the land. Like before, it was more Palestinian.
But the thing is, some Palestinians
Jews fled the war.
There were many Jewish Palestinians. Okay, even Golda Meir, although she denied Palestinians existed, at one point admitted she was a Palestinian prior to 1948. The population living there were some Jewish, some Muslim, some Christian, some Druze, some even Samaritans. The problem occurs when all of a sudden someone has supremacy over the other. And we must be careful with the language that we use, and of course there's been a Jewish.
I would say when the Israelis have declared that they want to take this land and make it their holy land.
But it is a holy land for Jewish people, right?
Yeah.
I think the problem is when you say that the nature of the state is that this is our land and our land only. Just as it would be wrong to say this land is only for Muslims or only for Christians or.
No, I'm not saying.
No, you're not. And by the way, nor are all Zionists. And the Zionist movement in its early days, the Balfour Declaration stated that this would be not a Jewish state, but a Jewish homeland, and it must not be at the expense of the local inhabitants. If you are that kind of Zionist, and I have friends who would be, I don't have a problem with that type of Zionism. And there will need to be a future, just as in the coming United Ireland, which is round the corner, by the way. There will need to be space for orange marches and people who describe themselves as being of a loyalist identity. There will need to be space in a future free Palestine from river to sea, hopefully, for people who are of a Jewish identity and who would be proud of the Zionist movement and making Aliyah and going back to their homeland. But they must not have a situation where those people become first-class citizens at the expense of the other people living there. I know this is all very easy for me to say, living thousands of miles away, but this is my vision of what a real free, independent state called Israel/Palestine or Palestine/Israel.
That is your opinion, yeah, it's acceptable.
What it could look like, yeah.
Opinion.
It's a good interpretation. But we live in a reality world. That's practical. That would be idealistic. But the real side of it is, as I said, if you're trying to eradicate a species that you're not happy with or you're not getting along with, then you're not going to be nice about it.
Of course, that's right. So just not to go off, because we've got to address these questions, because Layla has kindly got in touch and asked us to address them. The question was, when did the conflict start? My argument is it's a 20th century conflict.
War.
But Six-Day War was recent in all this.
1946 or 7 or something like that it was.
1948 you've got the War of Independence. 1967 you've got the Six-Day War. I've got a friend who is interested in talking about that.
Six-Day War, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, but the danger is saying that it was all perfect before 1948. I know there were tensions prior to that, but you've got to remember it was 1917 when the Second World War, First World War, when the Ottoman Empire lost the region to the Sykes-Picot Agreement and the British Mandate, and then you've got the British carving up the Middle East. This is the origin of the modern day
that is
conflict.
the origin, exactly.
The modern day 20th century imperialism that carved the land up and said, this bit's for you, this bit's for you, and that project is ongoing. They would love to balkanize Syria if they could and chop it up and put a piece for the Kurds and a piece for the Druze and a piece for the Alawis.
Saudi can be the other puppet in that country, and Shah can be the puppet for that time, and then Khomeini can be the other puppet after that.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And
There are many
Saddam
vying factions. Many vying factions.
Yeah.
Layla, what's the next question? If you're happy with when it started, my opinion is 20th century. I think Mac says the Bible.
All right. What is Nakba?
What is Nakba? Mac, what's the Nakba?
The Nakba.
Yeah.
The Nakba. What is it? Arabic
It's an Arabic word.
Nakba. I'm not actually familiar with it. Sorry.
Nakba. It means catastrophe, and it is the word used to refer to the moment Israel declared its independence in 1948. For the Palestinians, this was the Nakba, the great tragedy. It was the moment that their homeland was terminated, essentially, wiped off the map.
Not to be funny, the reason why I'm not familiar with that terminology is because my ideology doesn't follow that. I follow with a different one.
I know you celebrate that day.
For me, I mean, history. This is the thing. History don't repeat itself. If anything, I'm not talking about religious. It's just looking at history and realizing, okay, Cyrus the Great, whether he was religious or non-religious figure, he helped them trying to rebuild it. There was stories. All of these stories are you're meant to gain experience and learn from them.
Okay.
And if you don't, you're doomed to repeat
All
it.
right. Well, look, for the Palestinians, it was a great tragedy. I'm just going to add to that, Layla. There's another word not everybody knows. 1967 is described as the Naksa. So the Nakba is the catastrophe in 1948, and the Naksa in 1967 is the setback. Not a catastrophe, but they call it a setback, like another minor disaster. And I remember being in a camp in Jordan, in a refugee camp, and the gentleman showing us around was saying a lot of the people in this refugee camp are refugees not from the Nakba in 1948, but from the Naksa. There were many refugees created in 1967, people who fled that war, and some of them are living in camps in Jordan till this day, to quote Deontay Wilder. So that's the Nakba, and don't forget the Naksa.
Yeah.
Any more questions on that one?
No.
Okay, we're doing well.
I actually learned a lot. Thank you for that.
That's all right, Matt. That's what we're about on this channel. What's the next question? How many questions have you got left?
I have not a lot, just like few now.
No problem. No problem.
You told me you visited in Palestine before.
Yes, that's
like,
right.
How did you went? Like, did you went through Israel, or how did your trip go? Like, can you talk, like, the overall of your visit?
It's coming up to the 10-year anniversary of my first visit to Palestine with a friend that you know.
Yeah.
Jamal accompanied me, and we flew to Amman, Jordan, and went across the King Hussein Bridge, and we were inspired. Bethlehem used to be the hub of tourism in the West Bank. Go on, Mac.
Yeah, no, I'm listening.
Oh, so
I'm actually interested.
Yeah, and we were, and it was a Christian Palestinian lady that was giving the talk. The project's called Open Bethlehem. She was saying we need tourists, we need people to come and show what is happening.
Have you heard of Karen Armstrong?
Karen Armstrong, no.
Yeah, okay, like she's very good with. She's another person that I've been listening to, but it sounds like she's. What did she experience it herself? Essentially, is that why she was talking about it?
Yeah, but this woman is a Christian Palestinian who was trying to get people to come back to Bethlehem because the tourist industry was crumbling, and
this is what I'm saying. That land is not just for the Jews; it's for Christians as well, because Bethlehem is where.
That's right.
So,
and historically, 10% of the Palestinians were Christian. We tend to forget that when we portray this as a Christian versus Muslim
I can't remember
conflict.
what year it was. Salahuddin was when he took charge of Jerusalem. I think that was at the Ottoman Empire time. Do you know which?
Salahuddin defeated the Crusaders.
The Crusader, yeah.
Yeah, Richard the Lionheart.
But them times,
go on.
Them times, I think Christians and Muslims were praying in the same worship place. Like, I think the mosque or the church was the same at the time.
Yes.
Was it not?
Yes, even the mosque in Damascus, where St. John the Baptist is buried, for many years it functioned as a dual mosque and church together until the Muslims bought it off the Christians, and the Christians invested in a new building. So yeah, there was a time of harmony.
You know what? I think Muslims believe to some extent. I mean, yeah, he's human, John the Baptist. Yahya was very crucial. Like, he's kind of infallible, like Jesus. Like, Jesus was infallible. Like,
interesting.
So we have high regards for I forgot his name. Sorry.
Nabi Yahya, John the Baptist.
Yeah, John the Baptist. Yeah. So yeah, for us, he's a very, very crucial. I mean, we say in Arabic or Iranian, we say wasul, which John the Baptist does, and that's what we do when we like
washing. Okay. Ghusl. Okay, so the washing, like when Christians have a baptism, is with water, and there you go. There's something commonality between the Islamic and the Christian.
That is it. I'm telling you, when you because you go under the shower and you turn your head and you say, in the name of God, like to purify myself, cleanse me. So it's the same sort of procedure.
That's right. And baptism just literally means being immersed in water.
Rebirth.
But I don't want to get too far off Layla's question. And the question was, did I fly to Tel Aviv? No, I did not. Partly because if you fly to Tel Aviv and you are questioned and the authorities are not satisfied with your reason for visiting the country, and visiting the country and being deemed as a Palestinian sympathiser could be enough to have you detained and then sent back on your way, then it's better that you head to Jordan.
Don't go.
And you can be, if you are detained in Jordan, all they can do is turf you back out, and at least you're in Jordan. They can't put you in a cell and then put you back on a plane. Also, because Palestinians cannot fly direct to Tel Aviv, even though their parents or grandparents might have been born there in the city of Jaffa, which is no more, because they cannot fly there, it's a little bit unfair for me with my red passport to just pitch up and wander in and say, here I am.
Isn't it blue anymore?
Oh, well, it will be blue soon. But I can understand why, out of solidarity, people might want to fly to Jordan first. And when I was in a girls' school in Jordan around that time, in an English lesson, just helping out, and I was asked about how I came to be here and my travels, and I mentioned that when I travel to Palestine, and many of these girls were of a Palestinian background, as are about 70 to 80% of Jordanians, I said I always travel via Amman. I do not travel to Tel Aviv, and I got a round of applause just for that piece of what was deemed as solidarity or empathy with their cause. So yes, Layla, to answer your question, I travelled via Amman, entered via the King Hussein Bridge. That was Jamal and I in Easter 2010. It was an amazing journey. It was everything I anticipated and more. And I have been back 3 times since. I spent the summer there in 2011 and made a couple of visits back since. And I haven't been to Palestine since 2015. But I would love to go back. And whenever I go, I wonder, will it be the last time, you know? And people have been banned from travelling just for being deemed a Palestinian sympathiser.
Just say pro-Palestinian.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you are. You're pro-Palestinian. I'm not against Palestinians. I'm just saying. And
I'm not. I try to steer away from the label anti-Zionist. As a friend told me, you can be. Why not be pro-Palestinian? And if people are Zionist, there's a broad spectrum of opinion within the Zionist political perspective, and we need to forge ties with the people that are looking for peace, that are looking for a shared future. But Layla, next question.
Yeah, right, next question. And you have attended, I'm assuming you have attended like many London protests.
On the screen now there's footage from protest. There was just a picture from Cardiff when the Israeli football team played in Cardiff. I went to protest that match. I've been to many protests in London.
Can I ask?
Yes, Mac.
Why is it a problem? Because I mean, when Liverpool were playing and George Galloway went on live on TV with what's that guy? The business guy. I forgot his name.
You're fired, Alan Sugar.
And then they were having it out about the flags in the Tottenham crowd, and I mean, what is the problem with that though? I mean, I mean, I'm not in that situation. He's against it. He was. I mean, I don't get it. I just want to understand. Can you help me understand why that's wrong?
Well, as he put it, he calls out that flag wherever he sees it because it is an Israeli flag, and he just like.
What's wrong with that?
Well, he's of the same opinion as Jimmy Carter, whose book is just across the way from me. That state is an apartheid state, just as South Africa was. And when South Africa were practicing apartheid, the cricket team was boycotted. No one of good standing would buy a South African wine, and the decent thinking people of the world boycotted the country because of the racism in that country, and we got change. George Galloway, like others, is hoping we can bring change in the region of Palestine, Israel. And as Jimmy Carter put it, we can have peace, not apartheid, in the land of Palestine, Israel. But Layla, what you were asking, have I been to protests? Yes, many protests.
And how it went?
Yeah, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, the PSC, are often the organisers of these events. I've also been to the Al-Quds Day rally, which is normally the last Friday of Ramadan. And the Al-Quds Day rally was something invented in Iran. I'm sure our friend Mac knows that. Ayatollah Khomeini declared that the last Friday of Ramadan would be devoted to Al-Quds, i.e. Jerusalem. So this is another day where people come together for solidarity with Palestinians, but there is a religious slant to it, where obviously the PSC, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, is very much a political organisation full of socialist left-wingers. It would be much more secular. On Al-Quds Day, at the Al-Quds Day rally, there were a lot of Shia clerics there. You could sense that there was a lot of Iranian regime supporters. Take it or leave it. You've got to get your help where you can. If these people are supporting the Palestinians, then they're certainly right about that. They might be wrong about 101 other things.
You know what it is? It's because Iran are the country in that region that was suffering under Saddam, and they sympathize with countries in that region that are going through similar experiences that they went through. So that's why they're probably doing it. They have these proxies in these areas.
That's an interesting way of putting it, yeah.
No, it really is. Iranians are like, at the end of the day, this is their mentality. Again, as a Shia, they would think, if we're not brothers in religion, we're brothers in humanity. So regardless of race and again, you'll find, as I said, we've had this discussion. As well as the Zoroastrian, you've got Jews and whatever, all types in Iran. So Iranians aren't really too bothered about the religion in that sense, but they're doing more for human rights than the human rights activists in that sense.
Interesting. Wow, I've never heard you praise the regime.
No, well, I'm not. I've got the praise. I'm hearing that's their propaganda line.
All right.
I'm hearing that their regime, they want to Ahmadinejad said at the West, he wanted to get rid of the whole state. Like, why would you do that? There's people living there.
Well, he compared it to the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union disappeared, the people living there went on to do very well. You might say they were better off after the Soviet Union collapsed. Maybe the people from Israel will be better off when this racist supremacy is finished and everyone lives together. What do you think?
Right now, Iran's disabled anyway. Whatever happens, Iranians are like especially the high officials and the health officials, and right now they're just disabled.
Well, Layla,
in the sense of the
any more questions?
Yeah.
Keep them coming. What's the next one?
So the next question is, why do you think like Israel is occupying the Palestine territory?
Why?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Good. Okay, Matt, go for it. Why is Israel occupying Palestine?
No. I want to know. I agree to why. Okay, Israel are basically it's a promised land that was given to them by God.
Okay, yeah? I thought you'd say that.
God, and okay, again, it goes religiously, but at the end of the day, if we don't want to go religiously, if you want to talk politically, then if the next sort of madman like a Hitler arises and decides to, like, cause already there's certain people that are anti-Zionism, like, but obviously, yeah, it's got to the point where if you're not going to be kind to them, I don't know if you remember, there was an Olympics where someone went in and shot up the whole Israeli team in the Olympics.
The 1972 Munich Olympics, Black September, stormed the Israeli team. When they stormed the Olympic Village, they captured hostages.
So you know about that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, put yourself in a position where people are. I mean, how can you gotta be in a defensive like mentality? I mean, you can't. The world's coming at you. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm
Or what about a country backed by the only world superpower coming at you?
Well, no. In history, they've always like come at them, but like it's just one of them situations where I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing the bigger picture here. But as far as I understand, it was a land. I mean, if, like I said, a madman like Hitler arises, where are they going to go to? The Muslims, they got Saudi Arabia. I mean,
where will the disabled people go to if Hitler comes back? Where will the Romani travellers go to?
Well, first of all, I was.
Where will gay people go? Do we just start sending people at different places because of Hitler?
They go to Tel Aviv, don't they? I swear they go to Tel Aviv, and they have a lot of gay bashes out there.
Who do?
In Tel Aviv, there's a lot of gay parties and prides.
Oh, great! So if Hitler comes back, not only can Jewish people go to Israel, but gay people can go there too, can they?
Well, no. Gay people are going to be everywhere. Well, you think someone like Hitler comes to...
1 in 10, apparently. That seems a bit high. Layla, what was the question? Remind me, we've gone off track again.
Why is Israel occupying Palestine?
Okay, why is Israel occupying Palestine? And by the occupation, do you mean the occupation of the West Bank and East Jerusalem?
Yeah.
Because you got the State of Israel that was declared in 1948. In 1967, Israel launched a war known as the Six. Gaza and East Jerusalem should form the future Palestinian state. Donald Trump has recently accepted what they call the deal of the century, or he's been involved in brokering it, which just carves up Palestine further.
Yeah.
Leaves them with a non-contiguous, non-viable, tiny collection of Bantustans reminiscent of what the proposed plan was from the white supremacists in South Africa.
Can I ask you to do something?
Yeah. Go on, Matt.
Okay. If Palestine, I mean, if she's saying why is Israel or why are they occupying Palestine?
Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, okay.
Why?
Now, my question reversed is, if they don't, where would they go? They first of all, understand, like, it's there, before, again, it goes back to Abraham. It's left, and obviously Isaac.
It goes back to religion, yes, but they're actually stolen land
it's
here.
Their heritage. It's their heritage. It's where their ancestors are. Now, in the Arab section, we have Ishmael, and he's the great grandfather of the Arabs. So, in that sense, this is why they're just trying to claim what land, because at the end of the day, God promised one of the tribes.
Okay, fine. You occupy the land, make it part of your country, then call.
But if you this is the point. Okay, now I'm saying to you, you're saying it's occupied, but there we have incidents where their Olympic teams are getting shot up. Iran's not competing with them in these sort of competitions. They don't even recognize them as a state. So when you're getting this much,
wonder why that is.
This is the thing. If you're getting demonized in this way, what else can you do besides? It's not a defense no more. It becomes offense, because before you could defend yourself, you rather be the one that's doing the offense.
Okay, so Mac's saying it's because of self-defense. I believe that some of the Zionist movement want three things that they cannot have all of. They want the whole of the country, the whole of the land from river to sea. They want it to be a Jewish state in nature, and they want it to be a democracy. But you can't have all three. You can't have all the land and have it as a Jewish state and have it as a democracy, because if you give the human rights, which is the right to vote, to all the people living in that land and make them a citizen of your country, then you will no longer be a Jewish state. So you can't have it all. They want something that they can't have all three. And this is why they're trying to redraw the line and give bits here. They're even willing to exchange parts of their territory, like the Galilee, places that have a high Arab population, and give it up because they don't want to have these people as part of their country. And that's a dangerous game. And the nation state, it's a very we didn't really have the nation state till the 19th or 20th century, and the idea that the nation state has to be a racial state is an idea, I think, that belongs in the past, and there's no reason now why you can't be a Arab Israeli, why you can't be a Christian Israeli, Jewish, whatever it is. Identity is always multi-layered. Equally, as I said before, historically there were many Jewish Palestinians. It is a tragedy that that's a population or an identity that we don't have anymore. We have the Samaritans that are living in Palestine, who are equally of an Israelite background. They don't call themselves Jewish, but they believe in the Old Testament. They are Israelite, they are Palestinian, and some of them may regard themselves as Israeli as well. So really, we need to foster this shared future. But as I say, it's not for me, it's for the people that live there. To go back to the question of why they are occupying the West Bank, is because they want to eventually incorporate it into their state. The reason they haven't done that yet is because they have not been able to drive out the non-Jewish population there. So they want the land, they don't want the people that are living in the land. They want to wait till they go away, or they want to drive them out, or they want to have this strange set of circumstances that we have at the moment, whereby the land is sort of part of the country and there's people living there with citizenship of the country, and there's people living there without the citizenship, and they're living next door to each other, they're living back to back, but they're separated by walls. Or even in the town of Hebron, Al Khalil, they're living on top of each other, and there are thousands of soldiers protecting hundreds of people. There are more soldiers in Hebron than there are settlers, because they need to preserve this strange occupation that is going on.
Why is it strange?
Because it's very strange to have a country where people of that nationality are living outside its border, a country that doesn't even define its borders, and rather than just saying, right, this is our country and everyone who lives there is a part of it, they're saying, no, this is our country and these people are from our country and they're living on this bit of land, and we're going to build this wall here, and we're going to push and push, and we're going to push you as far off as we can to make sure that only people of this race...
Where can they call home? This is the problem. Their heritage, their promised land.
Yeah. Mac, they can live there. Let them live there, no problem. Just don't push other people out of the house. And that's what's happening. There's the footage on the scene now. Is Bil'in. In Bil'in, every week the people took to the streets to have a peaceful protest to push this wall, this war crime. It is a war crime. Off their land. They just want to live in peace. They just want to live like you and I.
Eradicating your opposition.
Eradicating the opposition. Who's been eradicated? Look at the map. Who's been eradicated? Who's disappearing? Whose land is disappearing?
Yeah, that's the point. It's been okay, look, if you're going to complain about them taking that land, why don't we always mention about how the indigenous Americans...
Yes, we should mention the indigenous Americans. And a Palestinian I met said, we don't want to become like the Native Americans. They've seen what's happened to the Native Americans, and they have refused to become the next Native Americans.
I mean, the actual Americans, the ancestors aren't from there. So, but this again, the conflict, the Mohawk. I mean, they've been paid off. They're happy. I mean, I'm sure that in some way or another. But again, they've looked at what using America as a experience, real. From the indigenous Indians, obviously they managed to get that. So now they realize there's no other way of taking land because they can't dish out. I mean, Arabs are already rich. Like, they got rich oil countries. So offering them money isn't really much. So at the end of the day, it comes to the point, as well as self-defense, it comes to the point as, all right, they're occupying it, but you got to understand. You got to. I appreciate your sympathy for human rights. I get that, and I'm not saying don't do that, but at the same time, you got to see their point of view. And what about who was there for them when Auschwitz, when their or I don't know, relatives, family, or grandparents or grand aunties were getting tortured, were getting gassed, were getting experimented on. I mean. You see what I mean? Who was there to try and stop them and protest all the experiments in World War II for them? So for them, it's like an open independent, but they're getting it at a cost of another nation.
Yes,
and that nation happens to.
As the Balfour Declaration stated, it must not be at the expense of the native inhabitants. And my argument is that it has been one hell of a cost.
Yeah, but it's because, understand, it's because the cost, as I said, is because they.
By the way, the majority of Israelis are not were not descended from people that fled the Holocaust. The majority now have ancestry in the Arab world and North Africa. If it matters,
Okay,
if it matters, and the way that the Arabs treated the Jewish citizens of their country did make this worse. We mustn't overlook that. They did make this worse. And the leaders of the Arab world have a lot to account for. not the Arab people themselves. It's the leaders at the end of the day, and it's not the average Israeli on the street that is perpetuating the occupation. It's the leaders, right? And this is who we need to turn our rage against, not innocent people, not civilians.
Yeah, but it's just a matter. I mean, I realize they keep putting puppets up and taking them down from Yasser Arafat to, I mean, even Libya, Gaddafi. They're all puppets from Saddam Hussein. I was saying earlier, like.
Well, if they're puppets, why do they have to come and kill them? Or is that just how you treat your own puppet when you've had enough? Yeah.
They give them too much, and they become superpower in the region, and then they try to sell the petrodollar for petro euro.
Sad, isn't it?
And that's why Saddam is. So it's all. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah. I believe it's they're becoming so aggressive in the ways that, like, occupying the land is due to the fact that everyone's hostile towards them anyway, and they got no other alternative but to deal with them with the, like, at the end of the day, they've been at it for years, and I'm sure, fair enough, in the past they've killed and they've held grudges because of killing, like, relatives or whatever. So but again, they're trying to claim to something that they don't have.
Okay.
At the end
So
of the day.
To relate it back to the question, you're saying part of the reason that the occupation is going on is because of fears of what happened in the past, and we must never again, as they call it, never again be murdered like in the Holocaust, for example. It's fair comment.
Yeah.
Fair comment. And I certainly think that has been used to put fear into people's hearts. In Norman Finkelstein's book Beyond Chutzpah, he outlines what he refers to as the Holocaust industry, if I'm paraphrasing him correctly, and how it has been used, and his parents perished in the Holocaust, and he explains how it has been used to what he would say is perpetuate another miscarriage of justice or injustice, to put it lightly. Layla, what's the next question before we lose track of this one? What's the next question?
Yes, and do you think they will ever coexist together?
Okay, do you think they'll ever coexist together? Mac, over to you.
I think the only time that would happen is when the Messiah arrives, and that would be the Mahdi or Isa or Jesus.
He's got a religious answer for everything.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, they're going to call it the Antichrist, or they're going to call it the one, the chosen one. Either way, they always have a name. Like right now, what's the guy's name? I forgot who's helping Israel under Trump. He's right now. They're in Israel. They're calling him like the chosen one, like the Messiah.
Jared Kushner.
Yeah, Jared Kushner. Yeah, they're calling him the Messiah. So, like, already, they appointed their Messiah, but I don't know. Like, can he actually perform the miracles of a Messiah? But again, it could be. I don't know. All I can say is the land has been taken is because it's been hostile to them. So they've got no other alternative but to be hostile back, and that's why. And the only peace that they're going to ever see is if someone actually. I mean, for me, I don't understand why people don't get it. The Qibla has been changed, so Muslims draw your attention the other way. Bethlehem is for Christians, and obviously the other rest of the land, the Holy Wall, the third temple where they want to build, which is what the Jews really want. Ideally, it's the Holy Temple, and what's wrong with that? We've got our masjid, we got the Medina Mosque, we got why can't they have their?
But Al Aqsa is the third holy mosque as well. If we are going by holiness,
right now the Jews, they can't say they have a holy temple like that. You see what I mean? If they build the third temple, then or the holy temple, or Solomon's temple, then they've got something holy, because that apparently in that region is the holy of the holiest. Like
so does really that mean holy. Like everyone else have to leave for them, like?
No, I mean, but they gotta accept them. Like, you can't have, like, with the Olympics when their team you gotta accept them as a state. If you're not gonna accept them, then they're gonna be hostile. That's the problem. If the world starts to accept them, then they have no reason to be hostile. Does that make sense?
No.
Well,
no?
It's a reality. Whether you accept it or not, the state exists. Would you accept it if you were turfed out of your house? I imagine you would not. But
yeah,
that is another conversation. What was the question? Was, will they ever live in peace, Layla?
Yes.
I'm going to go out on an optimistic limb and say yes. I think we can all live in peace. Just as we thought there might never be peace in Ireland, there's still the occasional flare-up, but generally it is peaceful now. And I am hopeful that this will be resolved also. But peace comes when people live as equals. It doesn't come when you have one on top of the other. And in order to make two groups fight each other, you've just got to treat one better than the other, and then there will always be a problem. Like in Rwanda, like in South Africa, like what's happening in Palestine. But if the people are treated equally and they have equal rights, because this is the thing, if any person of a Jewish background can go and live, the other side will not give it up for 2,000. They're saying we're back after 2,000 years. Okay, we're back after 70. The two populations have a shared history. They both have claims to the land. You can't say we have the only claim to the land. They both have claims to the land. And Palestinians won't like me saying this. They will say, no, they are foreigners. They're from America. They're from New York. They're from wherever. And some of them are. And many of them are dual citizens. And I think you might have to look at limiting dual citizenship in the region, because there are Palestinians living in Lebanon that have lived there for 3 generations in places like Burj al Barajneh and other camps that I visited, Sabra and Shatila. They have lived 3 generations with no citizenship in the hope of returning to Haifa or wherever it is their ancestors came from. Meanwhile, you've got people that might live in New York or London half the year and can come and go freely. This is a inconsistency, and it's unfair. But I do acknowledge that we need to have a shared ownership of the land, and maybe a binational state, call it Israel-Palestine or Palestine-Israel, would be some kind of a shared future.
That's the problem. They need to be recognized, and the Arab world or the Arab countries around or the regions in that region would not accept them. That's for them. Until that day doesn't happen, then there won't ever be peace between either side. Because at the end of the day, if you're chanting in Arabic or in whichever Farsi, whatever, death to Israel, you're not helping the cause. You're not being that, and that's what I'm saying. Even though, but do you see what I'm saying? If there's less hostility, then they would have to pack guns, and they wouldn't have to be so. Like, how many? At the same time, you've seen children get shot at the border and whatnot. But at the same time, have you seen how many people try to stab up the Israeli soldiers with knives?
Yes,
have you seen that?
It is knives versus tanks and guns. You're right.
Yeah, but no, but that's the thing. Why would they? If they're able, this is the problem. If they didn't have the tanks, gun, then they would be at them even worse. So these guns and things are because of the hostility that they're receiving. So they got no alternative but to say, okay, look, if you're not going to share this land, then you know what? All the Arab countries are hostile. Then I've got to prepare. At the end of the day, put it this way: you move into a neighborhood, like you move into an area that you grew up in, or you believe that you should be in, or you have some sort of you have your scriptures saying that is your land.
Yeah.
Now,
sorry to interrupt, Mac. Which Arab countries are hostile to Israel? By the way.
Well,
at the moment.
Well, every Arab country is. Is really the governments aren't really.
Go on. Which Arab countries are hostile to Israel? At the moment.
Used to be, but
they used to be. Yeah, they used to pretend to be.
Okay, so Egypt. You're saying Egypt in that region accepts Israel as a state? Lebanon.
No, I think Syria doesn't. Syria's never signed a peace agreement with Israel, and Lebanon has part of its country occupied by Israel as well, the Sheba Farms region, so they're probably not too happy about it. Jordan is a buffer state to Israel. The Muslim Brotherhood, when they were in Egypt, briefly made some noise for the Palestinian people, but they've fallen, obviously, again, and now so Sisi is in power.
These are the Arab countries that are against the Israeli state. Now, you're surrounded with these Arab countries that are not, that they don't agree for your existence.
No, well, yeah, I mean, you're surrounded by Jordan, buffer state, supporter of Israel. Egypt, once again, now not resistant to Israel. Saudi Arabia, America's other biggest ally in the region. They're doing pretty well. They're doing pretty well.
But that's the thing. It took. This is for Churchill to win the Second World War. The Balfour Declaration they said, look, we'll help you out with the Second World War. We'll get Americans to come into the war to take out the Nazis, but at the same time, we're going to need help to get our land back. That was the agreement.
Well, that was the First World War during which the Balfour Declaration was declared. But yes, this event panned over a long period of time. Layla, is there another question?
Yeah, this is the last question.
Okay, final question. And then you've got to choose one of us to go on a date with, right? Is that how it works? Is that a different TV show?
No, thanks.
Political blind date with Cilla Black. May she rest in peace. All right, last question to contestant number one.
What is Zionism?
Go for it, Mac, and don't get the Bible out. What's Zionism?
I couldn't. What's Zionism?
Yeah. Because Mac's a Zionist, but he doesn't like to admit it.
It is, yeah.
I'm not a Zionist.
I can't believe he spends all night defending Israel, saying the Palestinians should be there, and then the minute we say Mac is a Zionist, he says, "Oh no, don't call me that." It'd be like if goodness.
If you're supporting Israel, Mac, I have your own questions for you.
Okay, but we'll get to that. What's a Zionist, Mac?
I can email it to you.
Yeah, we could. Yeah.
Don't have it ready yet.
We'll stay in touch. Mac, what's a Zionist? Because you're apparently not one. Wow. Okay, if you're not a Zionist, I'd like to meet one.
From your description and from our previous conversations, from what I've gathered, a Zionist is defined as a person who's for the state of Israel, or the occupation of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you've told me.
Yeah. What do you think it is?
It's not just a movement, it's a religion, it's a belief.
Well, it began as a secular movement. The Zionist movement, founded by Theodor Herzl, was secular, non-religious Jews who were Jewish by a national identity and wanted a homeland. They didn't want to be religious. And religious Jews at the time shunned it and said, this has nothing to do with us. We are a spiritual people with a religion. We're not a national state. That's what the religious folk said when this modern 20th century Zionism came about.
Yeah.
That was the consensus. Now, the Holocaust, I think, changed that consensus, and I think you make some good points about that. But to capitulate to racism and say, because of racism, we're going to round up all the Jews and put them in another country, which is what Hitler wanted at first, by the way. And with the Havara Agreement signed with the Zionist movement, and they minted a coin in commemoration of it, Hitler was very keen about having all the Jews leave Europe and go and live in the Middle East. Before killing them, he might have been happy just to get rid of them. But of course, his racism led him to later massacre millions of Jewish people.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about that, and that's why Corbyn was revealing that, and I think he got in trouble, isn't it?
Yeah, and so did Ken Livingstone. But okay, can I say what I think a Zionist is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I would love to hear.
At the very thin end of the wedge, or in simple terms, a Zionist is someone who supports the idea of a Jewish homeland in the historic region of Palestine. There's your very basic Zionist, and as I said, if that is not at the expense of the native inhabitants, then you can't really argue with it. But in its most extreme form, Zionism includes people that believe, because they read the Bible literally, like some people do, that the region from the Nile in Egypt to the Euphrates in Iraq, this is the Holy Land, and this should be conquered and be a land for Jewish people and Jewish people only, and not just a homeland, but a Jewish state. So look, it's...
What about the Pison and the Gion? Do you not know about the rivers? The Pison, the Pion and the shall I send you the link?
Yeah, send me the link, and we'll come to that. But I'm just trying to go broad spectrum of Zionism, from extreme to liberal, whatever you want to call it. Supporters of a Jewish homeland at the liberal end, supporters of a Jewish and perhaps exclusively expansionist Jewish state at the more extreme end. I mean, any ideology will have extreme and moderate views, right? There are people on the left who are social democrats, socialists, up the way to communists. So that's my definition of Zionism. I hope that is that a sufficient definition for you, Layla.
Yes, that's enough.
Okay, no problem.
I'm just happy you didn't say me.
No. No, you're not the definition of a Zionist. You're pretty good though. If I needed an example. Yeah. And Layla, any more questions?
No.
Okay, and just round it up for us. Why have you come on here with these questions? Why is this of interest for you?
Oh, I was doing a case study of the Palestine-Israel conflict.
Okay. In an attempt to solve it, how can we solve the crisis, or what's the goal?
In an event of the whole conflict itself, like the conflict hasn't been solved anyway. It has been going on for a long time now.
It has. Well, look, I hope we helped you with the case, and thank you for reaching out. You've made a good. We've had a good video out of it.
No,
yeah, can I ask you a couple?
Yeah. Mac's going to hit you with a couple of questions later.
Well, no, you. I was asking you. Really.
Okay, or either or. Go on.
But since where are you from, Layla? Sorry. Where are you originally from?
You don't have to. We can be anonymous if you want to be anonymous, or you can answer it. It's up to you.
I just want to know. Like, obviously,
I'm originally a Somali, but I live in Ireland now.
Not where you live. Where are you originally from?
I'm from Somalia.
Are you Arab? Which Arab?
Mac, she said she's a Somali who lives in Ireland now.
Yeah.
And she's planning to kick out all the Irish people and turn it into a country just for Somalis.
Just for Somalis, yeah.
Because 2,000 years ago in the Bible, that was part of Somalia.
Yeah.
Maybe. We don't know. No, look, Ireland is becoming more diverse. I hope that the Irish people welcome the immigrants in their country, just as they should remember that Irish people were immigrants. The majority of Irish people live outside Ireland, and we must all live together. We must respect our differences. We mustn't push people out, and we mustn't, as you say, demonize the enemy. And I'm all about peace. There'll be people that disagree with what I've said tonight on both sides. Good. I hope both sides disagree with me. In a good compromise, both sides should be equally annoyed or disappointed.
No, but I'm just saying it's not about annoyance. I'm just saying the only way the conflict is going to be resolved, and you're going to see less hostility from them, is if these Arab countries accept that as a state. That's all it is. It's as simple as that. If you're not going to recognize them as a state and you're going to shoot up the Olympic
they already are a state. Like the thing that's not recognized now, Palestine is not recognized. You see, Israel is a state already. Like they have the numbers there already, and they have more land than Palestine. Do you see the problem now? They've taken someone else's land.
Yeah, and Palestine is disappearing. You can see the map
slowly and slowly,
over the years,
and they have no state of their own now.
Yeah, I mean.
So what else do you think like Israel wants like at this stage? You know, you're saying they have to be accepted. Like they are a state. Like Israel is being recognized, but Palestine, there's no Palestine there.
That's right. That's the discrepancy. That's the injustice.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
So Israel does exist. Palestine does not.
Doesn't, yeah.
Essentially.
Israel is already a state, like it's been recognized. Even they're in Google and the maps, like, but the Palestine, they're not.
And look, whether you're on the map or not, the reality is there. It is a reality. Yeah. I know you don't like the fact that Iran won't shake hands at the Olympics when it comes to the judo, but the reality is that Israel is there.
Yeah.
And the occupation is there. That is the reality. And the people on the ground who are resisting that are fighting for their right. And that is the reality.
Well, whoever's resisting for the state of Israel is going to have to fight for their life.
But this like you mentioned something about Palestinian throwing stones and having knives, like they're fighting with the armies, like. But these are soldiers who are carrying guns and things, like they have more proper weapons. Like, do you think like now they have a right to shoot a child? Like, what gives them more right? Like.
Okay, well, this is what I'm saying. Before the nice thing, they would go to the Olympics and shoot their team, and because they don't accept them as a state. So if you're showing, as an Arab country, you're not accepting them as a state, how else are you going to defend yourself? Because
does that mean you are going to shoot a child? Like, you see, we are talking about being like children being shot, or like people who are killed. Like Israel, like the soldiers have killed a lot of Israel Palestinians over the years now, and recently.
Okay,
and you're saying because they weren't given a land, like, but they already have a land. They have more land than Palestine, and even if they're fighting for land, like, that doesn't mean like they have the right to shoot, like.
Okay, in military and in sport, there's a mentality, there's an understanding. Yeah, the best form of defense is offense. You've heard that before, Julie?
Yes, good. The best defense is a good attack. Yes.
So rather than defending yourself, if you're attacking, then you have no reason to defend yourself. So again, this is what military like. I mean, you're saying they got land, fine, they got land, but if that wall's there to protect them, okay, you're saying they're shooting little kids. Okay, at the same time, you don't forget the fact that they're sending little kids as jihadi bombists. Do you see what I'm saying? They pack them up and then they get the kid to run towards the whole crowd and why?
Because they don't have tanks.
Well, but the point is, they got the tanks because they have kids that do this, are willing to do this. So if these kids are thinking that they're going to go to these 40 to 72 virgin, then I don't know. I mean, if